Hello there. I'm making this video as a slight sort of PS on my uh, video about some of the problems for diabolists with kind of the fetishization of darkness or what have you. And I just wanted to make some things a little bit more hopefully clearer in terms of what I mean. Uh, when 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 I talk about darkness in a sort of positive or spiritual sense, um, what I mean by that is natural things, even though they're things which we may find very difficult. So because they are all part of life and they're part of the process of life. So we're talking about things which are hard, um, processes of suffering, processes which are very difficult for us. Um, even things such as sickness, illness, mental health issues, um, uh, decay, death. These are all very important things. They're all entirely natural, though, in essence, really. Um, and I think there are things which one engages with and one inevitably will have to engage with, and which lead on to other things. Yeah, they're not stuck in themselves ultimately. Um, there is no ripening without decay. Uh, there is often no healing without going through some sort of a crisis on the way there. Uh, One often cannot reach greater understanding without going through the turmoil of trying to face what one does not know and does not understand. Um, Many sorts of healing come about through a process which actually articulates itself through a kind of pathology. Yeah. So there are many things which I would consider to be darkness, metaphorically speaking. Obviously, I'm not even going to talk about things like, oh well, the night or things like that. Purely, physical, natural phenomena in that way. That's obviously just part of life. Um, so these sorts of things I consider to be entirely natural. Now, what I have a problem with people is when they focus on things which are what I would kind of me what I would characterize as a kind of stuckness in any of these processes, or in any process really. Um, so, so for instance, where you've got things which are just chronically dysfunctional, you know, uh, you know, addictions, deep resentment, hatred, because hatred is basically it's a souped up form of resentment, and resentment is basically a kind of it's pretty much about not being able to come to terms with reality and about failure, which you just can't do anything about, but can't let go of, can't get past. So, to be truthful, hatred is simply the glorification of failure. And so there's something almost infantile about these things. Something where, again, it's stuck. Things like anger, they can be perfectly valid energies in certain situations, quite clearly. Um, uh, and appetites for things, perfectly good, perfectly healthy. Yeah, but when appetites become addictions, then you're dealing with something which is not of any use at all. And this is the sort of thing where people sometimes take this sort of thing to be darkness. And for me, this isn't. I wouldn't call this darkness because there's nothing natural about it, as far as I can see, or at least it's very much about extremely human failings, and that's what I'd say those would be. And I don't really think that's anything too particularly to celebrate. Those are things which actually need to be healed and need to be processed and need to get free of. Yeah, and so that's what I'm meaning by darkness. But the wider thing, which of course is natural and I think is sacred in of course, because it's part of life. That's a very different question. Yeah, that's a different question. It's this distortion of the idea of darkness which I really cannot stand, because it's like glorifying failure but not being able to accept that it's failure. It's that sort of thing. It's celebrating being stuck, and none of these things are in use as far as I can see. So that's the sort of thing that I was meaning by the kind of critique of some of the attitudes towards darkness, and that's what I'd say about that. Anyway, I hope that just makes it a little bit clearer. That's how I see things.
Now, as one last note on this subject, obviously I'm talking about, in these videos, problems for diabolists. Now, for me, diabolism is a spirituality and a religion which is life-affirming. And so when we talk about darkness in these ways, even when we're talking about natural things, there's difficult things which are difficult to deal with. Obviously, we have a situation where we have to come to terms with the nature of life. We have to come to terms also with the role and, in a sense, the purpose of really difficult processes, because some very essential processes are very difficult. However, we will still, of course, try to have the best lives for us and our loved ones that we possibly can. And so this again has to be, this forms part of the picture, of course. That should be obvious, but I will just state it here, just for clarity's sake.